Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll call, please.
Councillor Geisler. Here. Councillor Jelly.
Here.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Here.
Councillor Peterson.
Here.
Mayor Boucher.
Here. Council announcements. Do any councilors have announcements?
Not for me.
Okay. We have a sign up for public input, and some of the topic or agenda item numbers are a little bit confusing to me, but I'll get to that when we get to that person's time to speak. We'll try and have time for everyone tonight. Mr. Mulder, could you give us a short synopsis of the audit presentation that we had earlier?
So the audit for the year ending 12/31/25 was completed. It'll be on the website either late this week or the first part of next week. It was a clean audit. There was no findings. There was the city's general fund is in good shape. The water and sewer funds are also in good shape. The auditor went through some of kind of like how we did relative to budget in each of those categories. But as a kind of summary is it was a clean audit.
Thank you. Next, we have general public comment. This is the time to individuals can address the council about items not on the agenda. We ask that you limit your time to 3 minutes per person. First person listed is Jim Cluckert. Thank you. And this, thank you.
There's a rumor going around that a city
Name and
councilor
address.
thought that,
Name and address, please.
I'm sorry.
Name and address, please.
It is 206 North 11th Avenue West, Duluth, Minnesota. My name is Jim Cluckert,
Jim.
and it has 3 Ks in it. There's a rumor going around that a city councilor from Hermantown had said that it's the same 20 or so people that keep showing up. And I know you've seen my face before. I well remember yours, and I thank you for doing the work that you do. I believe you're all well intended in your motivation to serve the public at a rather thankless task. I had a hard time staying up for that last go around. The details are immense, but it is not the same 20 people who oppose this. Over the weekend, you may have seen in the Washington Post that 7 in 10 Americans oppose data centers. If you look at the roadsides of Hermantown, the proliferation of just say no signs should give you some indication that the popular sentiment moves against that position. I do not see the profit in continuing to mount this campaign. And I urge you to turn it around and say no and just abandon the process. It's a waste of time and money. The people that come here to speak against this are not well paid. They're not well trained. They come from their kitchen table with heavy hearts, burdened with a threat to their community. I've spoken to a number of women who are quite shy about speaking publicly. I was not raised that way. You've probably figured that out by now. But that leads me to one final question that I want to ask you tonight. The question is, where are the women? What sort of political process set up this city council? Well-motivated people, and yet I do not see a single woman before me. Women are key to the perpetuation of our human race. Women also sometimes have a broader and deeper view of things. I don't want to make any sexist comments, but it's time for American men to be proactive.
30 seconds, Jim.
When I walk into a room that doesn't have women at the table, I feel very much ill at ease. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Tim Kushnerek.
My name is Tim Kusnerik. My address is 5021 Thompson Road here in Hermantown. And the purpose of my 3 minutes is to tell you my feelings about the way this whole data process is being forgotten. I just can't imagine what went through your minds to think it was okay to not let the children of Hermantown have a say in this data process. That you got conned into complete secrecy from a conglomerate and you thought it was okay to do that? Are you kidding me? Have you no conscience? If any of you had a conscience, you would have already resigned, but you didn't. I can't wait until election time when we can run you out of town. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Candy Moore. Or Mock, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yep. Candy Mock. Am I supposed to give my address? I wasn't listening.
Name and address, please.
Yes. 5008 Morris Thomas Road. So it's the corner of Getchell and Morris Thomas when I give my friends directions. I have owned a home in Hermantown since 2012. I've never attended a council meeting here. I did used to work for a small city up north that had all these essential services, and it was a tiny little city, and I was one of the secretaries. And I used to read the council packets and get them prepared and nerd out doing that. And so just because I haven't come to a council meeting does not mean that I'm not interested in the work that you've done and that I don't appreciate it. I do. I frequently nerd out at home reading the council packets and the utilities commission packets. Not super frequently. And it's not interesting until it is, which is where we're at right now, right? And I think we see that people are interested in what's happening. So I have even back in the day seen what I knew was collusion happening. And we know that that happens, and that right away, I'm not saying this is you, I'm saying I've witnessed it previously, erodes trust. And that is what I'm hearing also right now with what's been going on. There's been some red flags. I don't know if it's true that someone said there was the same 20 people, but now consider it, I guess, 23 because, well, Jim was here before, but I'd be 21. I'm here now. I'm telling you, don't like what I'm seeing, but respect the process. But the red flags that I've seen are something sneaky going on with the comprehensive plan 2045 that just all of a sudden snapped together. Don't like that. The rezoning of the area, the AUAR versus an environmental assessment, an actual environmental assessment. If anybody has all the information in front of them, I would call your attention. I love the way the Fond du Lac Band of Ojibwe they were so succinct in what they said. It's in Appendix B, item 4, page, I want to say 15. Look at what they said. They kind of laid it out, like the difference between the type of assessments. Now, I do also work in engineering. I'm a technician. And so I respect that there's a bit of a dance to all of this. You have a scope that tells you what you think you're going to do. And then you go and you find out a little bit more. Pardon?
30 seconds.
Thank you. So I understand that, but here's what's happening. Even if we were to get to a true environmental assessment versus this kind of bird's eye view, AUAR, I think the trust has been broken enough by the process where what we're dealing with is we are a small community. We don't necessarily know what we don't know, even with the resources that we're going to tap into and the legals that we're going to tap into.
3 minutes.
I don't think people are still going to trust the process, and enough communities are crying out amongst our country that wish they had done it differently, that we need to heed the warning and not get into the mentality of
Thank
sunk
you.
costs.
Thank you. Next is Peter Taylor. Peter, you have two things written on the line here. One is AUAR and one is data center. There is an AUAR subject later on in one of the motions or resolutions. Is that the one you wish to speak of, or do you wish to speak of the data center in general?
I'll just try and cover it all now. if that
Okay,
works.
that's fine. Just,
Okay, yeah. So Peter Taylor, 4198 Solway Road, Hermantown. So recommendation on the AUAR is do a cost collection from Google and hire consultants and experts yourselves instead of taking whatever Google gives you, because you're working for the people. Google's trying to maximize profit. I want to speak a little on noise. I think noise in my mind is kind of the biggest way. If you approve this project, it will make people suffer. It will make people suffer, the people living close by especially. So you need to work really hard on noise. You need to go beyond Minnesota rules on noise. You need to have your consultant design the project, design the chillers, design the project to reduce the noise emissions. And if Google has to pay more, that's just fine. You should, analyze that noise and disclose it to the public. Show us the area it will be audible. Show us where the low frequency sound will travel, and make Google pay to reduce the noise emissions, to reduce the suffering of the people. So I think that's very important. Same thing for light emissions, but noise I think is probably a worse problem. So that's my comments.
thank you. Next is Sarah Lofald.
Hello, my name is Sarah Lopald and I live in Hermantown. I have been speaking out against the data center.
Address, please.
I would like to make a point of order for that. I have noticed that addresses have not been enforced across the board for people who are speaking. I have also been personally reached out to by somebody who I do not know with my address, so I am not comfortable giving my actual address, and I do not think that you should require that out of any of the other speakers as well, if you are not going to include that with everybody.
Mr. City Attorney.
It's also not required by every city council in Minnesota, including the Duluth. So.
The rules of speakers are supposed
To give their name and address and
It's not enforced across the board, though.
s-
It's also not necessarily required. So, and like I,
Motion to adjourn.
so anyway. We,
motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
we're adjourned. On the timer. Okay,
so I'm gonna start over. My name is Sarah Lopald and I live in Hermantown. I have been speaking out against the data center development at these meetings since October because I feel very strongly about my community, environment, neighbors, and the democratic process. I have taken hundreds of hours out of my life to dedicate my time and energy to researching, reading through documents, preparing comments, attending meetings, engaging the public, and more. I do not take this lightly either. I know I have been privileged with the ability to arrange my work and personal schedule in order to speak at these meetings. And many people don't have that flexibility due to children, family, jobs, disability, transportation, etc. Many others don't have the confidence to speak in public. Others don't feel comfortable having their addresses, full names, likeness, and personal information recorded for everyone to see and hear. And like I said in my point of order, I received a letter in the mail last week from, thankfully, a very kind gentleman with impeccable cursive handwriting who wished to express his concerns over electricity rates. And while this message was respectful and welcome, it took me a moment to realize how he got my address, and it was from this. Recently, I have also heard that a counselor commented that the same 20 people are speaking against the data center at these meetings. The acronym STP, or same 10 people, has been used by city councilors, commissioners, data center developers, economic development staff, and others across the nation. But I want to assure you and the public, we are not just the same 20 people. We are simply those who have made the time to speak out consistently. You have all received a multitude of emails, voicemails, and letters regarding concerns for this project. There are over 5,000 people who are following the Stop the Hermantown Data Center group. There are over 800 people who have signed a petition to create a charter commission and change the Hermantown city government. These people matter too. Their words matter too. So yesterday I posted on social media and asked for people to entrust me with their words so that I can give them a voice. I have offered them the freedom to share while also controlling the amount of personal information they provide. And I have been overwhelmed by the response. I am honored that they trust me with their concerns, but also deeply disturbed that they feel more comfortable with me representing them than they do with their elected officials. And while I cannot read them all today due to the 3-minute time limit, I am working on a video to compile their concerns so that they have the opportunity to be heard, so that those who have sent a response to my post, I thank them for trusting me with their words. I will do my best to do them justice. And to the City Council, when the video is complete, please check your email for the final product. I hope you will take the time to listen to those who have been unable to attend these meetings and begin to understand that this matter is much bigger than just the same 20 people.
Sarah, you have someone named Roberta Cockendorfer that's ceding her time to you. Is that for this
No.
time? For next? Okay, thank you. Next is Rich Hilton.
My name is Richard Hilton. I'm also a Hermantown resident. I don't want to echo too much of what Sarah said, but I was going to speak to a lot of the same things about public trust and representation. Not everyone can make these meetings. We all know that. Everybody has family, work, kids, they're caregivers, they've got shift work. It doesn't mean that they support what is happening, and it doesn't mean that their concerns should carry less weight. On October 20th, 2025, there was a petition with 1,600 signatures that was left here at the City Council meeting. At the rezone meeting, the building was packed. People had to wait outside. At other recent meetings, such as this, these chambers have been filled again and again. It raises a fair question. Before this data center project, how often were City Council chambers repeatedly filled? How often were people standing outside? How often were hundreds of residents signing petitions about city issues? This is not normal. This is a sign that the project is deeply unpopular. At the very least, it's concerning to a large number of residents. If the city believes that there's misinformation in the community, then the city needs to ask why. Confusion grows when residents are not given real opportunities for public back and forth discussions. You cannot avoid open dialogue, limit residents to short comments, move decisions forward, and then blame the public for not having perfect information when you're not willing to talk to us. How does the City Council know what the community wants out of this project if you have not sat down with residents in a large public setting and had real discussion with them? When correspondence is placed on file, please treat those comments as more than paperwork. Residents deserve to know that their comments are actually being read, considered, and reflected in the decision-making process. Public trust is not built by checking boxes. It is built by showing residents that their voices matter before decisions are made, not after. If this council believes it represents the whole community, then please listen to the whole community, including the people in this room, the people writing emails, the people signing petitions, and the people watching from home wondering whether their city government hears them, because they don't feel like you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Joanne Bates.
Mayor, City Council, this is Joanne Bates in Hermantown, Minnesota. I believe all of you to be good-hearted people who believe you are doing the best for our community. But when some of you sign non-disclosure agreements with a large construction company, Mr. Wickland and Mr. Mulder, representing an anonymous billionaire of a Fortune 50 company, you weren't just agreeing to explore a potential business deal to support community development and jobs. When you remained silent when Minnesota Power built infrastructure such as an electric substation, or once you recognized that the ownership of Minnesota Power was affiliated with the ownership of Google, you betrayed the trust of your constituents. You weakened our local democracy. Please do not authorize tax abatements for Google. The Hermantown Data Center is not yet under construction, but it has moved beyond the exploratory stage. Now Google is asking for tax abatements. You have heard from residents who are concerned about their property values and more. They're also afraid of electricity and water rates. They have shared the science of data centers. They treasure their peaceful lifestyle that would be disrupted by noise, light, and other pollution. Precious habitat that would be taken with no plan of restoring it. And most of the welcome jobs would be in the construction phase. And I've seen no insurance that they would be local union workers. I have heard some of you value this project. You think it would bring in lots of money and add to our tax base. Tax abatement may be valuable for young or growing businesses that fill a gap in a community needed to boost and help them thrive. Google doesn't need any financial boost from us. I have also heard that this data center would be an important investment in the powerful future of alternative intelligence, that the Northland would benefit from the inevitable, promising future of AI. The jury is still out on that question. But the people in around Hermantown do not want it here. 30 seconds? Okay. Giving tax abatements to Google seems like a waste of taxpayer money. Don't believe everything you hear from public relation representatives of major tech companies built on artificial intelligence, funded by billionaire looking for ways to play with their disposable wealth. It's a risky gamble. Odds are we won't get what they promise, and we will be left with a mess to clean up on our own.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Dennis Lofald.
My name's Dennis Lofald. I also live in Hermantown. It's just a coincidence. I'm related to Sarah. One question or one request I have is whenever we refer to the data center, is there any way we can call it the hyperscale data center? Because they're two different things. There's a data center downtown from the hospital. That is not the same thing that's going in up here in Hermantown. It seems like this project is already foregone conclusion. My question is there any way to stop this train? Anyway, I'm looking for it and I don't see it. I also don't see it in front of me, unfortunately. I appreciate the job that the city council and the mayor do, but I don't think they're following the needs of the citizenship. If I'm number 22 out of 20, I guess I'll take that, but I think there's hundreds and hundreds more. I'm not against a data center or a hyperscale data center. I think there's a location they could go. It's not here in Hermantown. We've got 6 miles by 6 miles, and we're going to take one of those miles up for a hyperscale data center, putting it in one of the most rural areas of the city with 2 trout streams coming through it. I believe that the city saw dollar signs. They've been wooed by a billion-dollar company that could answer a lot of your questions with all the money they've thrown into it. I think the people who are speaking for the data center also saw dollar signs. They see jobs, they see economic development, all wonderful things. I'm not against those. Hyperscale data center in that corner of Hermantown is wrong. It's just wrong. Some of you, I think, know that and believe it. I don't know, because I really haven't heard any one of you put out your own thoughts on what this project is, both the pros and the cons. And I think that would be of value to the community.
30 seconds.
That we knew where each of you stand. Some people come up here and just scream at you like you're evildoers. You're not evildoers. I trust that your intent is for the city. This is the wrong place. The unfortunate part, I don't know that there is another place in Hermantown to put it anyway. So, but I'd sure like to know how to stop the train, if you can help me with that. Give me a call, Dennis Lowfall. I'm in Hermantown. I am in the book, I think. Thank you.
Tom Bates.
Tom Bates, I live in Hermantown. I don't know if that's a surprise to any of you guys, but it could be. One thing I got on my mind is, and I don't know if this has occurred to any of you, but these big, the data bros, if I can just call it that, Google, Meta, their computing power is such that they can actually predict what they have to offer you guys, or a union, or a work group in a certain location to make a deal. They can use their AI to figure out what deal you'll take ahead of time. I don't know if that makes you uncomfortable, but it makes me very uncomfortable. And that's a fact. That's something that's come up in the literature. And I just, the stuff that's coming out about the power of AI is frightening. That's just one aspect. The other thing, I guess I've said this before, but if you guys ever do decide to back out, the earlier you decide, the better. And I think what you'd probably find is that we'll back you and we'll try and help you. You know, we're not going to leave you out there alone because that's what we want you to do anyway. I don't know if that gives you any comfort or not. Google should be pretty scary to deal with. Not comforting, pretty scary. They're huge and they're powerful. And we only have 10,000 people in the whole city. Anyhow, that's all I got on my mind. I actually got a lot more on my mind, but he's going to start ringing his damn telephone. You guys have a nice evening.
Thank you. Is it Doug Olson?
I don't have any notes. I don't know why I brought this up here. My name's Doug Olson. I live in Hermantown. And if you want to Google my address, you can find it in 5 seconds. I can also find it on the County Land Explorer. So I just want to say thank you. I'm wearing blue tonight to try to represent everyone in Hermantown, because I think that's what's going on, part of what's going on here. I haven't paid attention, to be honest. I don't know the details of the data center. I know there's a 20-acre pad that I noticed being built, so I'm assuming that's part of the process. But I'm not going to stand here and say that I know the details about what's in the resolution or in the documents. I've worked with many of you. I know most of you by first name. I've appreciated working with you. I know that you're not interested in hurting Hermantown or its residents. But what I do hear I've been here twice. This is my second time. What I do hear is a broken part of the process. And so that's why I came tonight. Not to speak to you about the data center specifically, but to say there's a broken part in the process. And I've been blessed to be a part of a company that I was able to help turn around because of their broken process. And all the people were being squished. And after we got the processes in place, the company flourished again. And I'm blessed to have been a part of that. So I want to share a little bit about that. I think there's a place, I went home last time from this and I said to my wife, I said, I think one of the things that's missing is a town hall forum. And maybe you've had it. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't paid as much attention as I probably should as a citizen. But we have a broken country in terms of talking to each other. And I think this is a great opportunity if Hermantown could get put on the map rather than for fighting about the data center, get put on the map for being a different process and show the country what it's like to develop a process and work together as a community. You know, if we had 20 town halls over the next month that people could actually come to and be a part of and hear the truth and hear the facts, because honestly, I can process a lot of facts quickly with you last week, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people can't process, and I can't process them all, but a lot of people can't process any of them. And they need to sit down and slowly and methodically hear, what are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Let me make a decision on the truth. I still don't know who shot JFK. I have my theories, but I won't know until we know the actual facts of the whole story, right? And that's what we want to do here. We don't want to leave here having everybody appreciate the respect that people have given you to some most degree. But I don't want to leave here knowing that our community was torn apart because of the process. So I just encourage you to think about what can we do to make that process better along the way. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next is Tim Resberg.
My name is Tim Resberg, Hermantown. One of the deals that people have been asking is why we're rezoning a residential and rural area that way back in even 2015, this area over in Adolph was voted on not to change it. And this is what Hermantown was always bragging about for people to move up into Hermantown was the residential and rural areas. And that's why these people did. And now by putting this data center, we're trying to say it was light manufacturing to begin with, but it's industrial. And all these people that did move up here and have their homes in that for miles around, it ain't gonna help them at all. One of the questions that's been asked quite a few times is for the water and sewage that's gonna be put in for this place. They said that they're going to pay for it for the first year. And after that, the taxpayers of Hermantown are gonna have to maintain it and fix it at our expense, not the Googles and the billionaires. Another thing is for the road maintenance and that. We're gonna have to pay as taxpayers to maintain it all for them. They're not gonna do anything. And what happens if Google decides to pull out after a few years? What guarantee has anybody have on that? And then what's gonna happen to all this after they pull out? Nobody's got any guarantee on that, what they're gonna do. And people brought up the price of land value once this goes in, and what the people, all the taxpayers have paid and moved up here for, and all of a sudden it's gonna plummet for them. And then also, it's been asked, about the well water for the surrounding people, even in Midway, Soloway, and areas, because that's a big aquifer and wetland back in there. And once they start blasting to put their footings down for the buildings that they want to do, what happens to a family that wakes up and wants to send the kids off to school? No water. What happens to them taxpayers when they get home from work and there's no water?
30 seconds.
Who's going to resupply them with the water? And then we'd like to know too, with the water and sewage, where it's coming from. And is it gonna come underneath the railroad tracks? And is the railroad gonna allow them to go underneath their tracks? There's a lot of questions that we'd like you to be able to answer for us taxpayers. And the noise pollution, and the light pollution and everything else that's gonna come along with this once it's running. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We'd appreciate if we get some of them answers.
Kathy Colmeyer. Okay. Bob Colmeyer.
Good evening. Bob Colmeyer from Hermantown. Our city representatives need to know that my wife and I have contributed much to our city over the 50 years living here. This is our city. This is our children's city. This is our grandchildren's city, not Google's. The city belongs to the community of people living here, just like us. The conduct of our city needs to derive from the people who have set down roots here by living here, not from people who don't live here. You were elected by us. Therefore, you must represent us. The majority, time and time again, since the un-American NDA walls were exposed, have been telling you, our representatives, how we want to be governed. In a democracy, the majority must be heeded, whether or not you agree with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Clarissa Eck. Thank you.
Good evening, Clarissa Eck. I live in Solway Township.
Thank you.
I speak tonight against the Google hyperscale data center development in the Adolph area and within a quarter mile of my 10-acre property. Specific to the agenda items tonight as to the resolution authorizing the preparation of the draft AUAR, there remains pending litigation regarding the existing AUAR that did not even identify the project as a data center despite years of secret planning, as evidenced in the thousands of documents received through government data practices requests. The new AUAR produced nearly 1,000 pages of comments from professional groups, individuals, government agencies, and others overwhelmingly against this development on this agricultural residential site. While I've not had the opportunity to review all those comments or the city's responses made within 2 weeks of those comments, which is kind of a crazy turnaround if you ask me. But I will say that the Fond du Lac tribe has weighed in against this project and referencing treaty rights, which I think the council really needs to pay attention to. Given the land involved includes tribal water tributaries and sacred streams, including protected brook trout. I further argue that the tax abatement should continue to be tabled. It is premature, it is beneficial to Google, and it misrepresents actual agreements that exist or don't exist. Specifically knowing that no agreement exists between Google and the school district as confirmed by Superintendent Wade Whitlam. Finally, if you are tired of hearing from the same people, trust me, I'm tired of being here. I'm tired of trying to protect my home, my health, my property value, and I want to be able to tell my children when we can no longer see the stars or the northern lights from our roof because of the 24-hour light emitted from the data center building the size of US Bank Stadium in my backyard. I want to be able to tell my children when we can no longer hear the birds or keep the windows open in the summer because of the constant 24/7 noise from the data center and decades-long construction. And I want to be able to tell my children when they no longer see any deer or other animals and wildlife because of the 24/7 sound emissions and other vibrations that I did everything I could to stop this development. I am and will continue to do what I can to protect my children and your children, actually. I'm protecting your children. What do you say to your children, grandchildren, neighbors, and loved ones? That you are doing everything you can to help Google?
30 seconds.
That you are doing everything for money and for corporate greed? Do you answer those questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Derek Strum. Are you ceding your 3 minutes on? Thank you.
My name is Derek Strom. I live in Hermantown. To my fellow community members, let me first off by apologizing for my absence. I've recently dealt with a few tragedies and my mind wasn't in the right place to be here. With that said, I have an announcement. Due to those tragedies, I will not be running for office. Life is too short to be consumed with the constant work. What I will promise you that is that I will still be an active member in our community and I will do whatever I can to support our community. Unlike Wayne, who can sell bad cars, I have a job that I got to attend to, and I need to make my money. I'm also here to say that with my current schedule, I have a week off every month. With this week off, I will be traveling out of state and interviewing with out-of-state law firms because I am filing a class action lawsuit against the 5 members of the city council, along with Joe, for giving me false information about what is going on here. I've requested information several times and I've been given 2 pieces of paper. That is insufficient. We are not being given the right amount of information that we are supposed to be given. Therefore, I will be filing a lawsuit. And that is only the one of many. The second one is going to be on the stormwater tax, which all it is your personal piggy bank to take money away from us. With all the corruption and fraud in this state, I do not trust law firms, so I will venture out of the state to find a firm that I can trust with the legal jurisdiction here in Minnesota. With that said, I need documentation. I'm asking all citizens, start documenting everything and anything. If you have a panic attack, if you end up in a hospital, document it. If you can't sleep at night, document it. If your personal health or life struggles with this, document it. With the evidence that we are going to prove that they have, and your evidence with all the problems that we're going through, we will win this case. And these 5 members are going to be without money. My goal is that these 5 councilmen, along with Joe, their next 3 generations live at Chum. They don't care about us, therefore we shouldn't care about them. It's time to bankrupt them to the point where their grandchildren are begging for money on the streets. See, we elect officials here to be our representative. Pete Stauber is a coward. Even as a longtime conservative that I am, I've asked him to meet with me, speak with me, email me, and he has denied it. He doesn't have the stones to comment or even meet with us as his constituents. Even the communist news station, Northland News, did a poll 3 months ago that found an overwhelming 76% of the population oppose this data center here. So why are they building it? It's because the 5 people up here do not know how to manage money. They mismanage all of our money, tax us beyond belief, and now they're trying to get ahead of it with using the tax money that they're going to receive from this data center. And then what are they going to do? They're going to turn around and give it all right back to them. This is just like Minnesota Power. The state gave Minnesota Power till 2030 to go green. What did Minnesota Power do? They doubled all of our rates to pay for their costs. We should not be given a single dime back to a $1 trillion corporation that all it's going to do is poison us for the state of their own greed. Now, 250 years ago, a group of brave men wrote a document called the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. In the Declaration of Independence, it states, Governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government, because of destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute any new form of government, laying down its foundations on such principles and organizations it powers in such form as they shall see likely in the effects of safety and happiness. But when a long train of abuse and abusive powers invariable do the same objective advice designed to reduce them under absolute deposition, it is a right and their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for the future security, which means if there is something wrong, those who have the ability to take action have the responsibility to take action. In the Constitution, we are given our God-given rights. Our First Amendment is allowing us the free speech that we are doing right here today. The government is also trying to take that away with censorship. These data centers are the very epicenter of what that is. With new TVs these days, they all require you to sign off saying that you will allow all companies to monitor what you are watching. All this is being controlled by data centers. Auto manufacturers are putting cameras inside their vehicles along with fingerprint scanners. Why? To look up and drive your car. If the car does not think that you are capable, it's going to shut you down and call the authorities. All this is AI driven. In this state, current legislature is attempting to not only confiscate our guns, but to make it illegal to own them. Fortunately, the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution supersedes state legislature and is our given right to protect us as gun owners. Many people think that a misconception of the Second Amendment is for hunting. No, this is far beyond the truth. Our founding fathers knew that politicians would abuse their powers and that the citizens may need the ability to revolt and take back their country. I am a United States citizen. I am a United States veteran. When I took the oath of office, I swore to defend my country against both foreign and domestic. I serve this great country because I believe in the freedoms that our God-given rights are. We have the freedoms that no other nation in the world has. Data centers interfere with those rights. I did not serve for corporations and our government to spy on me or my constituents.
Thank you, sir. Your time's up.
That's 6 minutes?
Yes. Maggie Hilton?
Hi, my name is Maggie Hilton. I live in Duluth. I wasn't aware of the same 20 people thing, but this is my first time speaking in front of you all, so thank you. I am here in opposition of the data center project. I'm right on the edge of Hermantown, and I spend a lot of time in Hermantown. I've worked in advertising and corporate marketing for 12 years. I started my career at a tech startup, and I'm here to tell you that in my professional opinion, you've been lied to at every turn. You're in the sales pitch phase right now. You're being wined and dined. They have answers to every question. They want your business. The moment the contract is signed, the moment the data center is built, they will be gone. There is no mechanism to hold these companies accountable when they don't deliver on their promises. These companies have every resource at their disposal to find loopholes, manipulate data, and weasel out of contracts, because in truth, there are no real consequences for lying when you're Google. If you can pay any fine, if you can get yourself out of any sticky situation, what's the mechanism for accountability? I'm going to talk through some hypotheticals here. Let's say they lied about permanent job creation. Let's say that the jobs don't materialize at the end of the project. What would be our recourse in that situation? Would we sue with taxpayer dollars? How would Google rectify that? Would they suddenly materialize jobs and hire more people? Let's say that the data center is louder than they claim. Again, we have lots of examples showing how loud data centers of all types can be. Let's say the light pollution is far worse than they're saying. Let's say it creates a heat island. What would be our recourse in that situation? Would we sue with taxpayer dollars? How would Google fix it? Would they shut down the data center? Would they rebuild the data center? Let's say there are a number of vulnerable species identified in the AUAR report. I'm not familiar with this type of stuff, but I read the whole thing. Let's say the Canada lynx population or the monarch butterfly population in the area is completely decimated or it ruins the trout streams. Is Google going to bring them back from the dead? Is the data center capable of that? Let's say they lied about the safety and efficacy of a closed loop cooling system. We have many, many case studies illustrating that closed loop cooling systems are a lab created fantasy, and they actually do pollute the land and water in very large radius outside of the data center.
30 seconds.
Through evaporation, mechanical failure, and human error, these things happen. What would be our recourse if our drinking water is polluted with a group 1 carcinogen? The damage is done. Everyone's already poisoned. Is Google going to pay everyone's medical bills? Are they going to come clean up Lake Superior? Are they going to clean up the watershed? Data center opposition is almost universal, regardless of political affiliation. That's pretty remarkable to me. And I would just urge you to reconsider the project. This is impacting everyone, and they will lie to get what they want. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan Thornton. Mike's not working. Okay, Jonathan Thornton is next.
My name is Jonathan Thornton. I'm a Hermantown resident. So now that we're more than 7 months into this public discourse on this project, this proposed project, let's say, it's important for everybody to understand the numbers. First, we have heard the figure $650 million used as the amount of investment Google will bring to our area for the first phase of this project. We've also heard numbers up into the billions for investment after all 4 phases are complete. Let's break this down a bit. During the city council work session on April 27th, just a few weeks ago, Councilor Geisler asked the Hermantown Economic Development Director a very good question. What is the amount of the property tax we can expect this project to generate after the first phase is complete? The director deflected and didn't answer the question. Again, during the pre-agenda session on May 4th, this time he asked the question with the representative from Ehlers present. Now, Ehlers is the public finance advisor company hired by the city. He would be considered the expert in the room. Once again, the answer was deflected. And the representative said, so the answer, I'm sorry, it was deflected. He said he's going to have to go back and do some calculations. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but it really was a red flag for me when I saw this happen. And now again today, Councilor Geisler asked the question a 3rd time during an open meeting. The answer wasn't answered. There was no answer. We haven't gotten a very important question answered. I'm going to have to surmise on some numbers here. I have to pull the numbers kind of out of the air a little bit because we haven't gotten this answer. But let's just assume that $2.5 million is the amount of tax that's going to be brought to the table. Because they talked about a 2.5% rate, by the way. There was a 2.5% rate floated out there. So if it is a 2.5% rate at a $2.5 million coming in, that's $100 million of a taxable value, okay? We've heard $650 million for months now. That means in that scenario, by the way, if we get the real numbers, we can maybe crunch these again. But that means that $550 million of this project is coming from NVIDIA chips and server racks and cooling systems.
30 seconds.
Okay? If anybody's got the ability to give me time, I'd love to take it. So.
I'll give a pen.
Who's that? John, you're not signed up? Are you in the back there? Okay.
So as an example, we're talking, can I continue?
Yes.
So we're talking about the difference between the 650 million and the 100 million. There's $550 million that is obviously not taxable for property tax purposes. As an example, when the tax assessor comes knocking at your door, they don't put a value on the couch or your refrigerator or your favorite exercise equipment.
Sorry, John. Go ahead.
They only value the land and the building. Last time I checked, the hardworking steel workers and HVAC workers of the Northland are not manufacturing NVIDIA chips or building server racks. Another factor to consider is that the local Walmart and Menards are currently paying 3.175% of their taxable value every year in taxes. The local data center in Volta, now known as ARC, is paying 3.2% of their taxable value every year in property taxes. Why would a multi-trillion-dollar company get 2.5% rate right out of the chute? Why would you allow that to happen? So, and that's before tax abatement, by the way. This is all before tax abatement, okay? Let's not forget, the state of Minnesota recently passed legislation last year that says for the next 35 years, data centers do not need to pay sales tax on the purchase of computers, servers, software, cooling equipment, and energy equipment. That tax break alone is worth $32 million for the first phase of the project and north of $100 million after all phases are complete. Many of the components of the data center are not necessarily opposed to data centers themselves, but they are very upset about the misleading statements that we have been given by this whole process. Trust with our local government has been shattered. It's time to rebuild that. And the only way we can really rebuild that is to stop the damn project.
Thank you. Steve Newland.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Newland. I'm a recent Hermantown resident as of a year and a half ago. Good evening, council members. Through my professional background in technology and infrastructure, as a senior network engineer for the past 15 years, I have some familiarity with how large-scale facilities like data centers operate. One thing I think is important for residents to understand is that projects like this often create fewer permanent jobs than they actually say they will. I know they're expecting to add maybe 100 permanent jobs when this is complete. I don't understand how it's fair that they get all these tax cuts when they're barely creating much job growth at all, besides some short-term construction growth during the project's phases. The construction activity may be significant for a period of time, but modern data centers are highly automated and typically operate with relatively small long-term staffing levels compared to the amount of land, infrastructure, and resources they consume. My concern is that Hermantown may take on major long-term changes without receiving the level of local job growth many residents are assuming will come with a project of this size. I also think we need to carefully consider how this affects the identity and appeal of Hermantown itself. Many people choose to move here, like me and my fiance, because of the balance Hermantown offers: space, natural surroundings, a quieter environment, and a community that feels separate from larger industrial areas. I know that when we go out with friends in Duluth and Two Harbors, everybody talks about how Hermantown is the place to live. Everybody wants to live up here. They don't want to live up here if there's a data center on half the town or is affecting half the town. It's going to affect our property values. It affects the appeal that Hermantown brings. That is the biggest factor I find, is the community and the appeal that Hermantown brings. Large-scale industrial development will permanently change the housing demand, traffic patterns, infrastructure expansion, and the overall character that attracts families and homeowners to this area in the first place. I'm not against development. I know that AI is coming, and it's here, and it's necessary, and it's going to make us better. But it doesn't mean it needs to be right here where we live. They have the money to be further out. It doesn't make any sense why they need to be here and affect our lives in this way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Emma Rickman. Joe, she has an extra 3 minutes.
Emma Rixman. I'm a Hermantown resident. I am coping with a bit of anxiety right now, but I am going to do my best. It's a lot of pressure to say a lot of big things in 3 to 6 minutes. No, don't stop. We did not consent to this. This is a technological assault. Our community is being exploited, victimized, and predatorized. Forced inevitability, a foregone conclusion. And you are the ones allowing this to happen. But you could also stop it. Google is telling you that this is a chance to change the world, to change Hermantown for the better. Well, of course they are. They are the ones who stand to profit from it. If a diner advertises that they serve you the world's best cup of coffee, according to who? The diner. They are trying to sell it to you. Google is selling you the same cup of coffee laced with all the PR they can put in it. I recently reached out to the council regarding Google priding itself in sustainability and its low impact on the environment. I wanted to know why, if this is the case, why the city and Google is shying away from a full environmental review of an environmental impact statement. If anything, I demand that Google stand behind their claims by voicing support for a full environmental review. Councilor Geisler was the only one who took time to respond, and for that I say thank you. You shared with me that the council has been repeatedly told that the AUAR is the correct tool for this project, that it comes from many legal and environmental experts in the field, and until we are told otherwise by the courts, I will continue to believe that the AUAR is the correct environmental review. You have been told. What if the information that you are being provided with from the experts, Google included, is biased? And the courts, is that the only thing that will stop you? Legal decisions? Where is the representation for your constituents that demand and deserve representation? If enough of us told you to do an EIS versus asked you, would that make a difference? I've spoken to several people at the EQB. My takeaway is from these conversations is that several things in the state statute are left up to the discretion and interpretation of the RGU, which in our case is Hermantown. So it is their interpretation that the RGU is the correct tool for this project. But we also have legal experts telling you that it's not. The city is currently in a lawsuit with MCEA over the original AUAR. You are the judge, jury, and executioner here. I hope you are giving this the due diligence it deserves. I hope you are thinking independently. But are you just digesting the information that the city is giving you as gospel? Things are moving like a freight train, and when you move too fast, mistakes are made, which was evident at last city council's meeting. In February of 2025, the four of you, minus Councilor Peterson, as he was absent, literally approved the motion adding Chapter 23 environmental review to city ordinances that would have barred May 4th resolution to approve the development agreements and tax abatement agreements. Not even the city's lawyers caught that. You were about to break your own ordinance, Section 2305, compliance and enforcement. And these are the experts that you are trusting to provide you with factual information so that you can make informed decisions. This project puts Hermantown at a true financial risk. So we get $130 million in infrastructure that Google builds for the sole use of the data center, but it's the city's job to maintain it. Yet they also need provisions for wells. What if these wells grow dry? What's the reconciliation process? I can assure you, Google will tell you that wells go dry for lots of reasons. So now it's on the residents' shoulders to prove that Google dried their well? What happens if Google leaves and there's no other businesses helping pay their fair share for this infrastructure? Right now, this project monopolizes the entirety of the southwest corner of Hermantown that was rezoned to BLM. Yes, the comp plan states that that rest of that area will be future BLM, but right now there are no other businesses, just residents, rural residential residents. So if Google kicks the bucket or the bubble bursts, the city is left to maintain it with no new revenue generated by the data center. Short-term gains for long-term financial obligation and risks. The city is already paying for a new hockey arena, trail center, and the wellness center, or trail system and the wellness center. How thin are we going to be stretched? I don't want to have to come up with a new tagline for the city's website. How can we have country living when you're giving the farm away? Lastly, I take great pride in being a frequent flyer here as of late. It certainly comes with sacrifice. And I know serving on this council, it comes at a sacrifice to your life as well. I also want to say thank you to the new faces in the audience and the people who took time out of their lives to attend. I deeply appreciate your support. So, yeah. We see the same 5 faces up here week after week too. And I'm excited at the prospect of seeing new faces in 2027. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Karen Harmon.
Karen Harmon. I also live in Hermantown. I usually give you guys a hard time about supplying assistance for the hearing impaired, but I'm not going to mention that to him. Haha. Anyway, I had the opportunity to go to the Carleton County, the first Carleton County meeting with their county commissioners and their citizens last week with several other members of the Stop the Hermantown Data Center group. And it was extremely interesting, not because I learned anything more about data centers or even about how organizations work like city councils, but it was so wonderful and because everybody could talk. And I've been really proud of Hermantown about when we were sitting here with people with red shirts and green shirts and sitting beside each other, and we could talk. What is your child doing? You know, how are your flowers doing? It was people to people. And that was what I saw when I was in Carleton County. The commissioners asked, what do you see? Where do you want to go with this? If somebody wants to come here in Carleton County and put in a data center, and everybody raised their hand, and that was a standing room only, small, much smaller than this room. But it was wonderful to have people talk and listen. It was questions. There weren't any answers. Actually, I thought it was really gutsy. There was one man who stood up and identified himself, and he said that he was a developer and he had been approached by a company and they were looking at putting a data center possibly in Carleton County. He admitted that he couldn't tell us who it was or the people in Carleton County, but they talked about it. They didn't throw him out. They didn't boo him, but they could talk about it. He also said that
Seconds, Karen.
he has looked at 3 properties that are a possible place to put a data center, and he couldn't identify them. And again, nobody was upset about that. But it was the fact that they got to talk about it. I don't know if we had had the chance to talk about it before we got to this part, if the results would be any different. But we really, really missed that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Julie Ernst. Okay, Paul, let's see. Pauline Olson is ceding time to Julie Ernst is what I have here. Who wants to speak? Your name? No,
I think she wants to speak for the AUAR.
Julie, did you want to speak for the AUAR or at the general public discussion? Okay. we'll put you down for later then. Okay, Barbara Opal.
Hello, my name is Barbara Opal. I live in Duluth. I'm going to talk for a moment about the sunk cost fallacy. A sunk cost is a cost that's been incurred and cannot be recovered. According to economic and business theory, only future costs are relevant to rational decision-making. At any moment, the best decision depends only on current alternatives and future costs. However, sunk costs influence people's decisions. People tend to continue a project once an investment in money, time, or effort has been made, even if continuing is not the best choice. You all have spent a lot of time and effort on the hyperscale data center project. Some of you have been working on this for years. We're here today, however, to determine what the best course of action for the future is. The effort you've expended should not affect your decision to change course. Information has come out since you began this project. Environmental costs you may not have known about, health effects to residents, and the overwhelming unpopularity of this project in your community. I encourage you to not let the sunk costs of your past efforts affect your decisions regarding the data center. Please make the right decision based on what you know now. Thank you.
Thank you. Gloria Moen, is it? What's that? Are you seating it to someone? Because do we have any more people on the list for general public discussion? Okay. Don Romano seated some time earlier, and Don Lapointe. Okay, that's okay.
Good evening, I'm Dawn Lapointe. I live in Hermantown. I'm one of the STPs, familiar face here, one of the same 10 or 20 people that shows up to most of the meetings. In case you haven't noticed, the STPs have consistently been opponents of the hyperscale data center, not those in support of the hyperscale data center. In short, this is the wrong project and the wrong location, period. If you believe this project will truly improve the city of quality living for residents, I urge you to conduct independent, rigorous due diligence. It would be irresponsible to move forward with this project without addressing the significant deficiencies in the draft agreements, negotiations, and transparency. It is imperative to perform an honest risk analysis of the entire project rather than adhering to Google's plan and accelerated timeline. Those who see the proposed hyperscale data center in Hermantown as the golden ticket have swallowed hook, line, and sinker the misleading PR campaign being cast by Google, Minnesota Power, Apex, Yes Minnesota, Chamber of Commerce, and others. If one takes time to read and comprehend the proposed development agreement and tax abatement agreement, it becomes clear that they lack reciprocity and fail to establish a mutually beneficial framework. The current terms create a significant power imbalance, offering limited oversight and enforcement capabilities, which undermines the community's interests while putting them at risk. Below are several concerns about these agreements that I want to bring to your attention. Number one, job creation shortcomings for construction. Despite the PR spin's core emphasis on local construction jobs, the agreements lack an explicit binding guarantee that local labor will be used for the multi-year construction. Large data center projects frequently import outside labor for specialized construction, even when local jobs are promised or preferred. Number two, job creation shortcomings for technology. Despite touting claims that the data center will create 40 well-paying permanent jobs in phase one, it appears Google is only required to meet that number for 5 years, not throughout the term of the tax abatement or development agreement. That seems consistent with the common goal of hyperscale data centers to be lights out, meaning there are no employees on site. In addition, it appears there is no guarantee that the positions will be filled by local candidates. The permanent job figures are underwhelming. Decommissioning bond. The agreements appear to lack a required decommissioning bond, leaving taxpayers vulnerable to cleanup costs if the massive concrete structures become obsolete or a stranded asset. A bond must be mandated to ensure that the developer, not the community, is responsible for removal and site restoration. Superfund and contamination liability. Portions of the agreements appear to exclude developer responsibility for pre-existing soil contamination, Superfund risks. The city should negotiate for the developer to assume full remediation costs for any contamination disturbed during the developer's construction process. Lack of enforcement and fines. The draft agreements appear to lack a robust schedule of fines or specific consequences for violating some of the terms of the agreements. Negotiating clear penalties for noise violation, job creation failures, or environmental violations would give the city actual leverage. Tax abatement should not be utilized as a punitive measure, nor should large technology corporations require such incentives to justify their investments. Third-party audits. Much of the data regarding water and energy use lacks independent verification, as it was provided by the developer's hand-picked firms. The city should require third-party audits funded by the developer. Water consumption caps. The agreements rely on estimates of 50,000 gallons per day, but appear to lack binding financial penalties if actual consumption exceeds those projections. The city should negotiate binding caps on water usage with heavy penalties for overages. Residential Utility Rate Stabilization Fund. Despite assurances that Minnesota state law presents cost shifting, I'm concerned we will face significant increases in electric bills to support massive grid expansion if and when the laws change. To address these concerns, the city should secure ironclad local guarantees or a developer-funded rate stabilization fund. The agreement should require the developer to indemnify residents or the city against regional grid upgrade costs passed on to ratepayers. Such protections are not unheard of. In fact, Microsoft currently offers some protection against such increases due to its data center needs. Road Repair Fund. Accelerated road degradation from construction-related heavy truck traffic is expected, but the current agreements appear to lack a dedicated repair fund. To mitigate this impact, the city should negotiate a temporary project-specific road repair surtax. Infrastructure Maintenance Endowment. Although Google is funding the $130 million in initial infrastructure, the systems will transfer to city ownership upon completion, along with the burden of future maintenance liabilities. To mitigate long-term taxpayer costs for this Google-required infrastructure, the city should negotiate a dedicated maintenance endowment.
30 seconds, Don.
Thank you. In conclusion, the proposed agreements represent a significant transfer of risk from a wealthy developer to local taxpayers in our small community. It would be irresponsible to sacrifice our community's character and long-term interests and instead create long-term liabilities. Ultimately, I urge the City Council to reject the project entirely, reverse the 2045 comp plan, and the rezoning that was unethically done. Let rural be rural. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of the people that have signed up for general public discussion. Did I miss anyone? Okay, does anyone on the council need a 10-minute break for personal privilege?
I'm good. I'm good.
Everybody's good? We're We'll take a 10-minute break. We're back in the agenda. Motion to approve or deny the following new liquor license contingent upon all paperwork being received and background checks being successful. Hermantown Tavern LLC, 4767 West Arrowhead Road, on sale intoxicating and Sunday liquor license. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by LeBlanc. Is there a second? Second by Peterson. Mr. Mulder.
This is the current location of Foster's on Arrowhead. It's going to be under new ownership.
This liquor license, if approved, would take effect on June 1st. Just for your reminder that we talked about this earlier, is that because it's a June 1st, we're going to actually give the liquor license for 13 months. So it'll go through June 30th of next year, as opposed to 30 days and then starting over on July 1st.
Thank you. Mr. Graves, has anyone signed up for discussion on this? Thank you. Any comments from council? Roll call, please.
Councillor Geisler.
Aye.
Councillor Jelly.
Aye.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Next is the consent agenda, minutes approval or correction of the May 4th, 2026 City Council continuation minutes, and accounts payable approved general city warrants from May 1st, 2026 through May 15th, 2026 in the amount of $705,005.95. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councillor Jelly. Is there a second?
Second.
Who was that?
Geisler.
Geisler. Councillor Geisler. Roll call, please.
Councillor Jelly.
Aye.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Councillor Geisler.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Aye. Next is Resolution 2026-48, resolution accepting large specific project scoping document and authorizing the preparation of the draft alternative urban-wide review, AUAR, document for the Section 31 Hermantown Industrial Project. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Councillor Peterson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Jelly. Mr. Mulder.
So as we've discussed, this is the scoping document for the AUAR for the Hermantown Data Center project. This is the time period where we had a 30-day time period where people can make comments. We received a lot of comments. They're included in your packet. And then the next step would be the development of the AUAR. But I'm going to ask Eric Johnson to explain the process a little bit more.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mulder. Thank you, Mr. Mulder and members of the council. So the city, along with their consultant, Braun Intertech, have been working with Kimley Horn on the preparation of the various phases associated with the Alternative Urban Area-Wide Review, or the AUAR, for the properties associated with the Section 31 Hermantown Industrial Project. There are several steps to this process, and like I said, the first one that we're just completing is the large scoping document that's before us this evening. As Mr. Mulder had mentioned, the public comment period was lasting for 30 days, and the city had received 5 comments from governmental agencies, as well as 235 comments received by the public. So city staff read each of these comments associated both from the government and from members of the public, and then worked with Kimley Horn to essentially group these comments into common themes in order to provide response or basically further guidance as it moves towards the AUAR basically drafting that way. So what I'd like to do is talk about those different themes. I'm going to break down a little bit further which things were in each theme as well. So first of all, we had the environmental impacts, which is also included climate change, hazardous waste, air quality, light conditions, utilities, and infrastructure. And then there was water resources and wildlife, which included water supply use, groundwater and protection, water quality and contamination, as well as wetland impacts and wildlife. Next, we had noise impacts, operational noise, construction noise, and duration. And there's cultural resources, requests for an EIS, lack of project clarity, desire for additional evaluation, language, labeling and process, study area and scope. Land use, there was compatibility and location, long-term conditions and post-operational considerations. Next, there's transparency. Then there was public engagement and process concerns. Then there's broader social, technological, or ethical topics, which included AI and technology, corporate influence, future development trends, and comparisons. Then we get into economic impacts and community benefits, unjustified public costs, community protections and benefits, and neighborhood impacts. And there's comments proposing alternatives, energy demand and grid impacts, sustainability and resource availability, And finally, expressions of either support or opposition to the actual project. As I'd mentioned, all of these comments were reviewed by not only city staff, but also our consultant, Braun Intertech, as well as Kimley Horn. And they were logged into the Appendix B that you have this evening as well, comment responses. So the next step in this process is the basically acceptance of this scoping document, and then the authorization of the draft AUAR document and mitigation plan. So obviously a little bit of this work has already been completed as far as that scoping document. It is anticipated that the draft AUAR document will happen over the next few months. That will be published in the EQB Monitor, just like the scoping document was, and in turn will start a 30-day comment period running generally through that June-July period that way. Once again, follow the same process that we just went through with the scoping document. It's anticipated this process will continue through the summer and into the early fall, but at that point, we would see a final AUAR document that would come before this group later on this fall. So this evening, we have Travis Fristed from Braun Intertech, who was the city's consultant in the review of this document as well. Mr. Fristed's able to provide a little bit more background on a scoping document and how it is used.
Thank you. Start with your name and hometown.
Travis Freestead, Prior Lake, Minnesota. Thank you for inviting me tonight to speak to a little bit more detail on the scoping document, the process, the current status, and the potential next steps. What is the scoping document has been a theme that was brought up in some of the comments that were received. It is used for EIS and AOERs, specifically for large specific projects. It identifies those resources, what those specific environmental items and project components that are relevant to the project, and the need for more in-depth analysis. In moving forward, that in-depth analysis is then forwarded on into a future AOER mitigation plan. Another thing was the difference between EIS scoping as well as scoping for AOER. The biggest difference is AOER study area versus the EIS, which is a project specific to that area, but the AOER study area is used for light industrial, residential, and or housing based on a conceptual plan, as well as developing the future mitigation plan. As Eric said, the scoping document completed a 30-day review for public notice, which ran from March 31st to April 30th, 235 public comments, 5 agency comments were received. In the resolution tonight are the comments as well as the comment responses. The resolution tonight, if passed, would initiate the draft AOER mitigation plan, which would have those additional items and more information on the project to those themes that were mentioned. The next steps to that, if passed, the final order and record is sent to the EQB within 10 days from today. The project proposer would then prepare a draft AOER mitigation plan. Once submitted to the city, the draft AOER would be reviewed by the city and comments or revisions provided to the project proposer. After the city's acceptance of the draft AOER mitigation plan, this document would be then public noticed for another 30-day period. Similar to the scoping document, public comments would be accepted, would be reviewed, potential revisions to the draft AOER, comment responses, et cetera. The final, the draft AOER and mitigation plan would then be presented to council for acceptance for approval of the final plan and mitigation. One thing to note too, related to AOERs that are specific, is that updates are required every 5 years as development occurs, or sooner if a proposed development is deemed significantly changing from the final AOER mitigation plan. Once the AOER is finalized and accepted, state environmental review is complete. The project would then proceed to local, state, and federal permitting processes. So I'm happy to address any comments that the council may have on the process or the next steps.
Any questions?
I noticed on a couple different sections, it stated a separate environmental review process outside of the AUAR. What would those be? Are those like, specifically, I noticed it in air pollution, but would that be like different permitting processes that would cover those, or what's going to happen outside of the AUAR to cover those types of items?
So the AUAR cannot cover environmental review for air pollution if it exceeds a certain threshold. It cannot be used for heavy industrial use. It cannot be used for any future areas outside of the study area, for instance. Hopefully that addresses your question, or?
I know specifically in this section that I'm referencing, it was talking about the generators. Is that part of a permitting process, or does the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency review that, or how does that, how does that work?
That is part of a separate permitting process, yes. Okay.
Anything else?
You mentioned that it could be updated after something's deemed significant enough. Who determines that?
That would be the RG of the city.
Anything else? Thank you. Any, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, thank you. And now Leila Bungie from Kimley Horn. I was going to delve a little bit deeper into the scoping document and some of the responses.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Leila Bungie. I'm with Kimley Horn. I'm one of the consultants helping the project proposer through the AUAR process. I just wanted to add a few more things based on what we updated from the draft scoping document in order to the final scoping document in order based on the comments received. So there were several topics that we added to the final order that will be studied in the draft AUAR. Those include fire risk from electrical faults and cooling systems, de-icing and other chloride reduction strategies from snow melt, electronic waste or e-waste, more information about groundwater, springs, and surface water interaction with stormwater systems, alternative sites. Also, just in general, there are a lot of comments were asking about more information about what data centers are. So there will be more specifics around heat, energy use, cooling technologies, noise and lighting design considerations. Many of the comments we received also refer to topics that we will be studying in more depth within the AUAR document as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
I'll ask the same question just at this meeting as I did the pre-agenda because this one's recorded. How do you ensure that all of the comments that we've received from government entities and the public are introduced or reviewed in the draft and final AUAR?
Yes, we did thoroughly review all the comments received from agencies and the public and worked with the city and the city's consultant to make sure that we are appropriately addressing them in the draft AUAR.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Johnson?
Really just to conclude that way, as Mr. Fristead had mentioned that once the environmental review process has ended, and assuming there is a further action or applications by the proposer, then it comes back to the local government or the RGU ourselves that way. We get into commercial industrial development permit as well as special use permit on those specific applications and potential approvals. That way, that's where we start to really, lack of better words, get into the deep dive into these things. You're looking at foot candles associated with lighting plans. You're looking at the stormwater, how are the stormwater ponds designed, how are they managed? All those sort of deeper dive information that really that this AUAR and the scoping is talking about and identifying. It just continues to dive down deeper as a project moves along that way. So as I said, there'll be the opportunity once again for, assuming plans come forward, that there'll be a lot more information regarding, more of those information that were or questions that were raised by the public.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council?
This is the tool that we use to answer all the questions.
Okay, next we will move to the public discussion end of this. Nick Reinhardt has signed up for this. Nick? Name and hometown, please.
Nick Reinhardt, Hermantown. Just a couple of points as I was kind of reviewing the AUAR that are, clarification documents as we're talking about.
closer to the mic.
Sorry about that. Better?
I don't think the Kleenex box is working too well.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Got it. Perfect. 2 points I just want to talk about for that were kind of mentioned in the public comment section. I wasn't real happy about that. I feel like maybe the consultants kind of misunderstood some of the points. The first one I want to start talking about is the scoping on the size of the area. I talked to some people on this, who seemed confused as to why the scoping area was shrinking. All of a sudden excluded the substation, which is a major part of this project. Just looking at the comments and the responses, I didn't think they addressed that real well. It was them more talking about how people seemed confused about what the project was. And, reading some of the comments myself, that's not what I got out of it. I think they were concerned about that reduction in size, specifically in that study area and how it affected, the project affected a greater reach. And I'm not saying the original AUAR study was just a greater reach in general, and I think people are looking for that to be kind of the study zone again. Another comment that kind of stood out to me too is they talk about the project lacking clarity. And I don't think a lot of the comments, people understood this is a data center. It's big. It's a lot of football field size, yada, yada. We get that. Hermantown's pounded that into our head from day one. The news has. We get what this is. I think when people were talking about lack of project clarity in particular, I think there's a lot of ambiguity within what the project is going to be, what kind of diesel generation is going to be used, what kind of cooling is going to be used. Throughout the document, there's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of, we don't know what this is going to be yet till the project is defined. And I felt the response to that comment just really didn't cover what the citizens were getting after there. That's really all I have to say. I could stand on a high horse and talk about data centers all night, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sarah Lofald.
Very close to my face.
You can put it anywhere that's comfortable.
I think this will be fine.
Is
I also have to contend with the light source, so.
Sarah, you've got someone who's seating 3 minutes. Let me know when you come to the podium if that's the time that you're going to want the 3 minutes.
Will do, thank you. So my name is Sarah Lofald. I live in Hermantown, and I was one of the 235 people to submit a public comment on the updated AUAR scoping document for the hyperscale data center. And like many of the respondents, I have a lot of concerns with the first and the current AUAR process and the lack of project details within the documents. I'm not going to go into super detail, but these concerns include, but are not limited to, not stating the name of the proposer, which is Google or Alphabet, in the entire AUAR document, vague references to details that do not allow for a person to reliably interpret or comment on the expectations or impacts of the project, the use of assumptions based on predictions instead of actual details and data, the assumption that the data center fits the 2045 comprehensive plan, when in fact the 2045 comprehensive plan was specifically changed to fit this data center. This is the same case for the zoning language and area zoning for land use, and whether the city of Hermantown is the correct RGU for this massive hyperscale data center project that will have effects that go far beyond our 35 square mile city. The city of Hermantown staff signed NDAs with the project developer in May of 2024. On September 13th, 2024, Hermantown City Administrator John Mulder confirmed to Chad Ronchetti that the mayor was informed of data center next to Minnesota Power substation and that we did make sure that this area would be planned for business light manufacturing. Those are in quotes. On October 24, 2024 email from Mortenson Development Director Chris Bates to Deed Minnesota and Chad Ronchetti confirmed as quoted, yes, this project is a data center use. So despite this project having always been for a data center and had city ordinances and zoning changed specifically for this hyperscale data center, the city of Hermantown has continuously proceeded with the AUAR despite the project reaching the mandatory threshold for an environmental impact statement. Residents and members of the surrounding community have overwhelmingly requested the city perform an EIS for this project. And due to the shortcomings of the updated AUAR scoping document and the failure of the developer to submit a full and detailed project description to allow for real environmental impacts to be studied, the city of Hermantown should reject any further use of the AUAR process, especially for an unprecedented hyperscale data center project. Instead, the city of Hermantown should prepare a full environmental impact statement only after the developer has completed a full and detailed project description. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Rich Hilton.
All right, my name is Rich Hilton, also of Hermantown. I also want to raise concerns about whether the AUAR is right, the right environmental review for this project. We have been repeatedly told until tonight, finally, that this AUAR and the EIS are basically the same thing. Finally, thank you for saying that it's not, which we have been telling you all along. The AUAR is an alternative environmental review. The EIS is a project-specific review. I don't know if any of you have read the UQB website, but I have because I've been doing my research. This is not a light impact development. It's 24/7 hyperscale data center with major power, cooling, backup generation, utility, stormwater, wetland, and noise impacts. And that matters. The city recently amended Chapter 5, Section 535, Business Light Manufacturing through Ordinance 2025-11 to add communication services facilities into the BLM district. The city's own definition of communication services is essentially a data center definition, including data center processing, digital storage, backup power, cooling equipment, utility substations. So you changed all this information so that the data center could fit under business light manufacturing. Had you not changed that, it would have been heavy industrial. Had it been unchanged and continued forward as heavy industrial, it would have required an EIS. So before the city council accepts an AR that treats this as light industrial, the public deserves a clear explanation on record. Is the city relying on zoning language that is recently created in order to make this hyperscale data center fit in this AUAR pathway? Because you cannot simply change a label and make the environmental impacts disappear. You can't just change it to light industrial, make it fit there, and then have all the impacts disappear. I also remain concerned that the public does not have binding maximum numbers for water use, sewer flow, peak power demand, backup generation, fuel storage, cooling equipment, all those other details that are central to the environmental impacts of a hyperscale data center. You cannot do a real environmental review on placeholder numbers. On top of that, the comprehensive plan and rezoning foundations for this project are already being challenged in court.
30 seconds.
I'm not asking you, I'm asking you not to build an environmental review on unstable legal foundation. If this project is good and safe for Hermantown, then prove it by listening to the people who have to live with it. The public is not asking for obstruction, we're asking for proof. If this project is truly safe, compatible, and well-planned, then it should survive an EIS. The city should not be afraid of the most thorough environmental review available. I'm just finishing a couple seconds here, thank you. Available for the largest development Hermantown has ever considered. Google would like you to do an AUAR. The citizens you are supposed to represent would like you to do an EIS. Who do you represent?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Julie Ernst. And Julie, it appears you have another 3 minutes from Pauline Olson.
I do, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Julie Ernst, and I'm a Hermantown resident of 10 years. And I have one quick global comment that relates to the prior section in this. I didn't know I could go at 2 different points, so excuse me for that. What I wanted to say to the earlier point on the global discussion is I keep waiting for some expressed recognition of the true project costs. We saw at the prior meeting a slide that says what Hermantown will gain, but there was no slide that said, here are the trade-offs, here are the potential costs. If we ignore the costs, we run the risk of heading down a path that's not sustainable socially, economically, nor environmentally. And so I hope at some point we step back and look at the bigger picture, not just what is gained, but also a picture that includes cost to ecosystem services, to public health and quality of life. I feel like we are poised, even this evening, to open a door that cannot be closed, and one that would permanently and irreversibly change the character of this land, this place that we call home, our community. I believe that many, or maybe even most, of your constituents are expressing they're not ready to open that door. So regarding the resolution and the scoping document at hand, I hope that you each actually took the time to read through those 700 pages. I spent all day looking at them, and I got through part of it, much of it, not the whole thing. And I really then looked at some of the responses. And that's the part that I'm concerned about. I appreciate that there was the opportunity to provide comments, but I'm kind of doubting the process, which in the very words in that document was going to carefully consider the comments received through the scoping process. I'm a bit puzzled by how carefully whoever was responding to the comments, I'm still a little confused, could actually consider the breadth and the depth and the specificity when the comment period only closed 2 weeks ago. Some of my work in my professional role involves qualitative research, and so I know the process of going through data and getting themes. It is not a 2-week process, so I'm really puzzled by that. I'd like to bring forward just a few of many examples of responses that were given to either agency comments or general public comments that I felt were less than meaningful and maybe sometimes even dismissive. For example, the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa urges the city to consider an EIS process due to significant potential impacts. And the response comes back, there's no need for the EIS as the updated AUAR addresses the same topics. That's missing the point. It's not about the same topics. The EIS provides depth, rigor, and a more comprehensive analysis. So that response is either indicating a lack of understanding of the distinction, or worse, a dismission of concern being brought to us by our band, our local tribal band. Another example comes from a concern by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. They expressed concern about the cumulative potential effects. The response is that we'll update the AUR if the assumptions documented deviate significantly, and that kind of has already come up. But that's not very reassuring if the RGU gets to determine when the assumptions are deviating, and what does that mean, significantly deviating? That's very subjective. So that's troubling. Then we have the reservation business community of Fond du Lac writing, our tribe protects these resources and has done so much, so time immemorial, and it's imperative that we're consulted with to ensure we work together to protect these resources. The response is that we'll comply with the city of Hermantown's stormwater requirements. That is missing the point. They're asking us to consult with them, to respect their authority, to respect that there is a deeply held sacred belief that water is life. And so then to say, like, we'll follow the stormwater requirements, I find that very troubling. I feel it's dismissive of who they are and what they're asking. There were public comments from among us questioning the vagueness of emission mitigation in the scoping document, and the response comes back equally vague, that the AUAR will describe potential measures to reduce emissions and that they will implement sustainable measures to the extent practicable. Again, very vague and hard to find something that you can trust with that. The public expressed concern about lack of consideration of alternatives, to which the response is, we don't need to consider alternatives because the alternatives that you brought forward don't meet the need. The need is a Hermantown data center, to which I ask, when did that become the need? When did we decide it was something that is needed? It may be an opportunity, but that's different from a need. What are we lacking in this community that we have arrived at? That's the need. And lastly, there was responses to a few places about environmental impacts where the response that we're supposed to feel good about in this is Google sustainability practices. They have a website that lists their sustainability, achievements and their self-accolades. But do we take the word? They have a vested economic interest in this. If we dig a little bit deeper, it's not hard to find some concerns that are surfacing about their sustainability. Some of their financial backers, for example, Trillium Assessment Management, which is a significant investor in Alphabet, the parent company, has filed a resolution against their climate strategy because they're not meeting it. The data suggests that there's been a 51% increase in emissions from their base of 2019. So my concern in this process is that we are driven by what our social media savvy teens might call a FOMO, a fear of missing out. If we don't act quickly, someone else will get it. I don't think speed is a virtue in this process. I ask respectfully that we slow down and consider what the community's best interest is.
Thank you. Anybody else signed up? Thank you. Jonathan Thornton.
My name is Jonathan Thornton. I'm a Hermantown resident, and I just signed up because I wanted to make sure that I expressed my concerns about misleading statements again. Lots of misleading statements coming from this body, not necessarily from this body, but from this city administration for the last 6 months. Here's a really prime example of that. I heard more than once tonight the number 235 comments that this scoping document included 235 comments. I'm sorry, but in 709 pages of material, there's a whole lot more than 235 comments. That's very misleading. Each one of those pages includes many, many, many comments, just so you know. So please don't use that again. The other thing, the 2 weeks was just mentioned. How in the world can this be properly vetted and looked at and brought back to the council in 2 weeks? 709 pages. Starts at, by the way, this also was not mentioned tonight. The agenda packet was 928 pages long today. 928 pages long. How in the world do these folks digest all of this, 709 pages of letters, in 2 weeks' time and do it properly? Just not possible. By the way, the SHDC, the Stop the Hermantown Data Center group, was several pages of that, which consists of a lot more than 20 people, in fact, 5,700 people on a local or on a Facebook page. The MCA was commenting on this, a much larger group. CURE commented on this. We know the Fond du Lac Band commented on this. These are much larger groups than 235 comments, okay? So that's my main concern. I'll bring it up every time. When there's misleading statements, I'm going to call them out. Stop the project.
One more. We'll have them bring the list up. Thank you.
Doug Olson.
Doug Olson.
Hermantown.
Couldn't read the first name.
I'm going to speak from a little different perspective, a little closer to home. My concern again was with process. About a year ago, I looked at a piece of property on Getchell Road. Perfect place to put in 5 homes. I proposed the project. I was told it wouldn't work. Couldn't do it that way. I drove by it last night and it's being done exactly as I proposed. I passed on the project because I couldn't do it.
Sir,
Why am I going to spend $200,000?
we have an agenda item on the table and this does not address that.
Yes, it does.
Does?
I'm getting to the point. My point is the process. My exact proposal lost me $200,000 because someone else did the exact process because it was determined to be done without a clear process in mind. I was told no. So there's a little bit of a good old boys club still underneath the surface. If someone screams loud enough, they get attention. Someone screams loud enough to do the project I wanted to do. Oh, they screamed louder. They got to do it. So I'm a little concerned when we take that to $1 trillion company, is some of that still happening? And I think if you were honest about that, that's the perception that's I've heard. I'm speaking to you. I'm not against economic development. Joe can attest to that. We've talked much about that. This is not about that. This is about, there's a lot of people, there's 10,000 people in this community wearing blue that are Hermantown residents that love this community and want their voices heard. And what I'm hearing is that there's a little bit of shadiness underneath the table, and I wouldn't want that. I like all of you people, but why make that? I think you can dispel that. You have an opportunity to dispel that, and you don't have to go through what I went through on a personal level to lose that kind of money on a whole citywide level for everyone involved. So
thank you.
I encourage you to look at that closely.
One more. Emma Rickman.
Emma Rickman, 5215 Chris Drive. Oh, I said my address this time. So used to it. I mean, it's on video at this point. I wasn't intending to talk on this, but I took many notes when I read through the AUAR scoping document. And I kind of touched on this earlier, but I guess it's, geez, it doesn't really matter. It says, identify measures incorporated into the proposed project to mitigate any potential incompatibility discussed in an item above. And it says the proposed development scenario is anticipated to be compatible with planned use in the project vicinity. So the planned use is BLM, but people still live there. Like you can't, like when would it ever get, when would those homes turn over to BLM industries, like actual realized businesses? Like those homeowners have to decide to sell. So I don't know. I just don't want you to forget that even though it's going to be future BLM, that some of those folks, most of those folks probably anticipated spending a great many years there. So I don't know. It just doesn't really feel like it's compatible with the current land use in the vicinity. And what's the timeline between current to future planned use? So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. We're out of comments for this agenda item. Any questions or comments from council?
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of follow-up. I asked the question about how do we incorporate these comments. Now I have a couple of further questions. Do we go and talk to Fond du Lac Band, MPCA, and others of the 5 governmental agencies that submitted comments? Do we reach out to them for discussion? Or do we just interpret what they're asking or commenting on and build it into the AUAR?
Eric?
Great, thank you. No, we do have the opportunity to speak further with these groups and have one-on-ones to ascertain more information and such. Once again, we're starting up here. We're getting more information as we go down. This is part of the process. scoping documents, identifying the issues, identifying the scope of the project. Now we start moving in, we get more information as we keep on moving through the process.
And what we're approving is not an AUAR. We are approving the scoping document.
That is
That
correct.
moves the process along, that allows us to reach out to the governmental agencies, et cetera.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Public discussion is over, sir. We'll,
decided on this industrial site and where the stormwater is going to be running out of the separate ponds that they have going on people's property.
we can talk about that after the meeting. Anything else from council? Roll call, please.
Councilor LeBlanc.
Aye.
Councilor Peterson. Aye. Councilor Geisler.
Aye.
Councilor Jelly.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Next is resolution 2026-49. Resolution clarifying motion to table resolution 2026-45. Do we have a motion?
I motioned to table before, so I will motion to approve this clarifying resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor LeBlanc. Mr. Mulder.
At the last meeting, you tabled the decision relative to the tax abatement and development agreements. Typically, when a resolution or a motion is tabled, it sits on the table until at some point in time it comes back. We wanted to clarify just in terms of so that everybody knew kind of the schedule of that, is that item won't come back to the city council until after the AUAR is completed.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
I have a question probably for Mr. Ronchetti. I think at the end of the discussion last meeting, there was some confusion about this job creation, and I heard it tonight. The 5-year is a state statute, but correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe just take it over, but the jobs that are tied to the agreements were for the duration of the agreement, and if they didn't fulfill those, then the abatement was lessened on a percentage.
Mayor Boucher, Councilor Geisler, yeah, you've got it. The 5-year time requirement is in line with the state business subsidy law, and then the job requirements, if they don't match or if they don't abide by the job requirements that are within the agreement, then there is a pro rata reduction in the tax abatement. So if they create 50% of the jobs that they have committed to creating, then their tax abatement is reduced by 50%. So, if a lot of criticism around the number of jobs, but if the jobs aren't created, then the tax abatement then is turned back to us, and we then retain it.
Thank you. I have one other item to want to clarify is discussion about at the end of the meeting, there was some discussion about the school portion of the taxes. And I think Mr. Wicklund tried to clarify it, but I've heard some comments that Google will pay their portion of the school taxes. And in theory, everybody else's tax comes down because the levy is the levy. Just to clarify, that is correct, right?
Yeah, that's how.
And then besides that, then they have committed to paying the $42.5 million over the duration of the term of the agreement.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's not that they're paying extra tax, they're paying their portion of the tax. Okay, thank you.
Joe, could we get somebody here from the school district to explain how that budgeting works and how they're going to potentially use the $42 million or $40 million, depending on what document you read?
Yep, we can ask if that's possible.
Could we ask if they want the money? We still haven't heard back.
Any other questions from council?
And I guess just one other thing to clarify. Yes, the school district does not have an agreement with Google. The city has an agreement with Google, and that the city and the
City doesn't have one yet.
well, we proposing, good call. The city and the the city and the school district would then have a agreement.
Mr. Mayor and Council, yeah, the city negotiated on what it felt was best for the community. I think Mr. Mulder put this pretty succinctly at a different point in the media, that we felt the way that the biggest impact could be made in our community in terms of community betterment payments was to the school. As we, kind of continue through time and continue to have the opportunity to think about, we still think the school is the central way that can make the most impact in terms of those betterment payments.
Thank you.
Anything else from council? We have one person who signed up to speak, Sarah Lofalt.
All right, I'm back. My name is Sarah Lofald and I live in Hermantown. And I would just like to extend my appreciation to the council for making the correct decision to table the development agreement and tax abatement agreement with Google at the last meeting. Unfortunately, it was painfully obvious that the council was not prepared to discuss the agreement. Between only one counselor really being prepared to talk and asking some very concerning questions, another counselor leaving their homework at home, the development agreement containing incomplete or incorrect information, and everyone seeming to need an explanation on how to make a motion to table. It was frankly a little bit embarrassing. It honestly made me wonder how many of you actually read and understood the documents presented to you, or if maybe some simply put their faith in the authors without question, or if there had been other conversations had prior to the meeting that left some of you seemingly unconcerned with the obvious issues. I was truly concerned when it was revealed by Ronchetti and Mulder that some of the information within the development agreement was outdated, specifically the exhibit showing the proposed utility expansion map, which, under my understanding, is the entire purpose of the development agreement. Ronchetti also mentioned that some of the other information in the development agreement would need to be amended once the actual project details were revealed by the developer. That is very concerning. Despite wanting this document to provide public transparency, the documents themselves that were provided to both you all and also the public for comment were not correct and did not reflect the reality of the project. And I question how anyone would propose a vote on an incomplete and incorrect document and call that public transparency. I encourage the authors of the development agreement and the tax abatement agreements to listen to the public and amend both documents so that the public can have true transparency and be able to comment on correct and current information. Thank you.
Thank you. Emma Rickman.
Emma Rickman, Hermantown. I don't know if this is the appropriate space to have this question answered, but I'm going to throw it out into the void. If you choose to continue to table this until after the AUAR is completed, do the development agreement and tax abatement agreement that was presented on May 4th, do those remain unchanged, or does that material get updated or changed and new documentation would be put forward after the AUAR is completed?
We would amend it.
Mr. Mulder says that we have the ability to amend that before it comes back.
You would or are? I don't know. I guess it doesn't make a difference because I'll probably comment on it then anyway. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think the intention of tabling it was to update it with current information.
One more. Joanne Bates.
Mayor and councilor members, this is Joanne Bates from Hermantown, Minnesota. Correct me if I misunderstood, I'm sorry, but it sounds to me like you are making the decision for the school what will work best for them. And I think it's complex and well beyond what you're thinking of. I've spent some time talking with Cindy Olson, the lady who spoke and corrected your misunderstandings at the last meeting. And I ask for you to do what Mr. LeBlanc was suggesting and bring the school administrator here and make more sense out of this.
Thank you. Nothing more? Thank you. Any follow-up questions from council? Roll call, please.
Counselor Peterson,
Aye.
Counselor Geisler.
Aye.
Counselor Jelly,
Aye.
Counselor LeBlanc,
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Next is Resolution 2026-50, resolution authorizing the purchase of a Towmaster T16 trailer in the amount of $25,920. We have a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Counselor LeBlanc. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Peterson. Mr. Mulder.
You previously had approved the purchase of a track skid steer, which was part of our capital improvement plan. In that capital improvement plan, it was both the skid steer and a trailer. We did not have the quotes for the trailer when we purchased the skid steer, so we've got the quotes now for the trailer. So this is part of the 2026 capital improvement plan.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? And it appears no one has signed up to speak to this resolution, so we will have a roll call.
Counselor Geisler.
Aye.
Counselor Jelly.
Aye.
Counselor LeBlanc.
Aye.
Counselor Peterson.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Next is Resolution 2026-51, resolution authorizing and directing mayor and city clerk to execute an acceptance of easement agreement to the city of Hermantown for parcel 395-0010-04405 from Minnesota Power for the Hermantown Lightning Drive Improvements and Trail Project. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Counselor Geisler. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Jelly. Mr. Mulder.
I'm going to ask either Trish or David to speak to this one.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is an easement that the city is receiving from Minnesota Power in relation to our Section 14 project, which includes improvements to Lightning Drive, Thunder Chief, Getchell, a new trail, and sewer. So this easement is located at the intersection of Getchell and Lightning Drive, and we'll have improvements of both road and utilities, and that's where the trail will commence as well. So this is one of a few upcoming easements that we'll be bringing forward to the council.
Thank you. Any questions from council? And has anyone signed up to speak, Mr. Graves? Roll call, please.
Counselor Jelly.
Aye.
Counselor LeBlanc.
Aye.
Counselor Peterson.
Aye.
Counselor Geisler.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Next is Resolution 2026-52, resolution receiving preliminary engineering report and calling for a public hearing for Road Improvement District Number 548, the reconstruction of Stebner Road, MSAS 103 between Morris Thomas Road and Maple Grove Road in sections 23 through 26. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Counselor Peterson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Geisler. Mr. Mulder.
So this resolution is the start of the process for the 2028 road improvement project. This would, you're accepting the engineering report, and then we'll call for a public hearing in June to discuss with the resident, and we'll also have neighborhood meeting with the residents in between that time to talk about the proposed road project.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council?
I guess what we had talked about before was before that June meeting, we should re-engage on the assessments and see how we move forward with that.
So when we have the public hearing, we will make a note that the assessment number in the financial end of this is a placeholder, and we're working on.
It's a placeholder, and it would be the worst case scenario.
We're working on changing or discussing city policy on that.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks. Any other questions? Anyone signed up? Roll call, please.
Councilor LeBlanc.
Aye.
Councilor Peterson.
Aye.
Councilor Geisler.
Aye.
Councilor Jelly.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Next is Resolution 2026-53, resolution approving preliminary and final plat of Hawkline Business Park and imposing conditions on the final plat. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilor Geisler to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Jelly. Mr. Mulder.
That was LeBlanc.
Oh, LeBlanc. Okay.
I'd ask Community Development Director Eric Johnson to kind of address this issue.
Mr. Johnson.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mulder, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you'd mentioned, this is a preliminary and final plat for the Hawkline business development. It's at the northwest quadrant of Highway 53 and LeVake Bypass Road. So currently, there's 46 acres associated with this development. There's 4 existing parcels there today. So what the applicant is proposing to essentially redo is to reconfigure these parcels into 6 new ones. So of these 6 parcels, the majority of which are going to be the 38-acre parcel associated with the proposed project that was heard last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, where it was a warehouse distribution facility along with the parking lot and 3 stormwater detention basins associated with that. That application did receive a commercial industrial development permit approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the second lot is going to be a 3.1 acre future development lot that's located hard up on that corner at 53 and LeVake Bypass. There will be an existing 3.1 acre parcel that has an existing building that's there today, that concrete building along with the scaffolding business that exists along Highway 53. The next 3 parcels have to do with right-of-way. There's a 0.9 acre parcel that's going to be right-of-way dedicated to the city. The purpose of that is to build a future road connection, which will provide access to LeVake Bypass Road. And lastly, the other 2 parcels are going to be a total of 1.7 acres. That's land that'll be dedicated to St. Louis County for the purposes of right-of-way associated with LeVake Bypass Road, essentially cleaning up some right-of-way issues associated with that roadway. So as of today, there's 4 lots with 46 acres. Assuming this application is approved, there would be 6 lots on that 46 acres.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
I guess I just have a comment that in light of a data center, this would be a pretty big news for us. This is a 230,000 square foot distribution facility with 500 jobs. So it's quite a development, and it's going to help our tax base significantly. So nice work for our team here to land this project.
Thank you. And it also does reuse an existing former Superfund site that was a blighted area. Any other questions or comments from council? We have one person who has signed up to speak, Sarah Lofalt.
I promise. I'm going to take my time this time. So Bobby, this will be her time. So my name is Sarah Lofalt and I live in Hermantown. And I want to start by saying that I am not opposed to developing this piece of land in the northwest corner of Highway 53 and LeVake Bypass. Back in February, when the City Council voted to a resolution to redevelop this land, I encouraged the Council to proceed with cautious optimism. And today I want to reinforce that sentiment and remind the Council and the public of the history of this brownfield site. In 1983, this particular area was designated a Superfund site due to the improper containment and disposal of waste oil by the Arrowhead Refinery Company. For those that do not know what this means, basically, a Superfund site is an area designated by the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, called the EPA, that has been contaminated by a pollutant and poses a significant threat to wildlife, water, and public health. This resulted in the contamination of soil, surrounding wetlands, and groundwater. And it also prompted 13 neighboring households to connect to city water in 1990. The designation of this piece of land as a Superfund site by the EPA is not an unserious matter. The cost to clean the soil and remove waste sludge was estimated to be $23 to $24 million, and that was in 1986. Though the site was removed from the national priorities list, this does not mean the site is fully clean or safe. And even now, the site is being assessed by the EPA every 5 years, the last of which was done in 2022, and the next is slated for 2027. All of this information is available on the EPA website regarding Superfund sites. You can also learn more about the one that's on the St. Louis River. The EPA has determined that all cleanup has met acceptable levels. And again, I do not oppose redevelopment of this site. In fact, I encourage it. It's what it was made for. However, I feel very strongly that assurances are needed from any developer who wishes to break ground on this site. This should include a plan for prevention of recontaminating the soil, wetlands, and groundwater, oversight by a pollution control agency to monitor the work, testing of soil and water before and during site construction, as well as continued future monitoring, a plan and fund for mitigating any future pollution coming from the site, and more. Before any development agreement is approved, these things should be met to ensure the safety of the public from potential further contamination. As we learned from the previous owner of the site, it is a distinct possibility that a large company can pollute and cause such harm to our public health. I believe I still have a few minutes.
That was the first three.
Thank you.
He's got to reset it.
Thank you. So my request to the city is to please consider the site's history and future potential to cause harm to public health. Please include assurances from any developer to monitor soil, groundwater, surface water, and runoff for contaminants that would put our community at risk. Also include a mitigation and remediation plan that would be funded by the developer if any such contamination is found. The goal isn't just the development. The goal is the dedication to public health and safety and a mutually beneficial relationship between the business and the community it exists within. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have someone else? Name and city, please.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Catherine Sarnicki. I'm with Stantec Stantec Consulting Firm, and I am here on behalf of Scanell this evening, the proposer of this project and plat. And I just wanted to clarify the environmental process because this is a super fund. The MPCA is overseeing the process in which the site is getting developed. It has been a response action plan and construction contingency plan submitted to the MPCA review, approved by them. There will be an environmental consultant on site overseeing the investigation and stormwater management. And all that does need to go to MPCA for review upon completion to make sure they've completed all the response actions to keep our public health and welfare safe. So that is part of the obligation from this developer on the project. Just wanted to make sure that's clear.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's other questions.
No, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Graves? Roll call, please.
Counselor Peterson?
Aye.
Counselor Geisler?
Aye.
Counselor Jelly?
Aye.
Counselor LeBlanc?
Aye.
Mayor Boucher?
Aye. Next is Resolution 2026-54, resolution authorizing and directing the mayor and city clerk to execute and deliver purchase agreement for fireworks from Flashing Thunder Fireworks. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Motion by Counselor Jelly. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Peterson. Mr. Mulder, should we let Mr. Wickland handle this?
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Based on both the celebrations appropriate for our continued 50th birthday as well as the country's 250th, we are looking to do a fireworks display again. We did one on December 31st that was wildly successful, even in unbearable temperatures. So we hope that doing one on July 17th will be a much more enjoyable experience as part of Summerfest, again, in line with celebrating the 50 years we are a city and 250 as a country. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? I'm only hoping our red flag ban is gone by then. Anyone signed up? Roll call, please.
Counselor Geisler.
Aye.
Counselor Jelly.
Aye.
Counselor LeBlanc.
Aye.
Counselor Peterson.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Next on the agenda is a motion to recess. Do we have a motion?
Move to recess?
Motion by Counselor LeBlanc. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Geisler. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.